Welcome to Hope in the Morning. I'm your host, Emily Curtis, and joining me again today on Hope in the Morning are Brandon and Jill Bishop. Brandon and Jill spoke with us last week on the loss of their 14-year-old daughter, Izzy, and what it looks like to trust God in grief. As they were navigating that loss, Jill was diagnosed with cancer for the second time. I encourage you to go back and listen to episode 11 for the first part of their story. But today they join me to talk about what grief looks like in the first year compared to 3 years later. We'll also talk about what it looks like for a father to lead his family through grief while walking through his own. Brandon and Jill, it's such a privilege to have you guys back on the show. So thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you. It's an honor.
So we were talking last week about how you had a beautiful, vibrant sunshine of a girl, Izzy, and you lost her tragically in June of what year was that again?
2022.
Of 2022. And shortly after losing her, can you walk us through the next trial that you faced?
So almost a year to the day from losing her in June, I was diagnosed with tongue cancer. It was really random. I was in the 10% of people who don't smoke or drink or do tobacco of any kind that can get tongue cancer. It was my second time with it. I had been 12 years in remission, not with tongue cancer, but with a different cancer. And we just were shocked. It was disbelief. I remember the doctor coming in and telling us, and I was just like, we're coming up on the year anniversary of losing our daughter. And now we're facing this. Like, it just felt like a mountain on top of a mountain, and not really knowing what that was going to look like or entail. I don't Google ever since my first round of cancer what that means. So just fully trusting our doctors and Brandon doing research on what the next year was going to entail for me. We really struggled with, I remember where Izzy is buried, we bought the 2 plots next to her. And I remember going there shortly after getting diagnosed and thinking, like, is this my future soon? Wow. My family going to have to bury me next? And that was hard to grapple with. There was definitely anger and frustration and confusion. What are we doing wrong? You know, those doubts that you kind of go through. But we're on the side of it now.
When you say that there were thoughts going through your mind of what are we doing wrong, were you kind of in a state of mind where you almost felt like maybe these were punishments from the Lord?
Yes. I think that I especially will lean that direction very easily. And something that our pastors and elders have been really gracious to minister to my heart to work me through after Izzy and then this, because it felt like that. It felt like we just walked through our worst fear, and now we're facing cancer again. And we knew what cancer looked like last time. And I think that made it even scarier, just how hard that was on our family.
When you went through cancer the first time, how long was that period for you?
It was about a 6-month period of chemo and radiation, and then it's like a full year recovery period.
Okay.
I had Hodgkin's lymphoma the first time, which is very treatable, but it's an aggressive treatment, and not linked to tongue cancer. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So at that time, if I'm doing the math correctly, when you were first diagnosed with the Hodgkin's lymphoma, was Izzy about 3?
Yes.
Okay. So was she kind of an encouragement to you during that time? Like, as you guys say, like a little ray of sunshine in that hard season?
Absolutely. Yeah. She would come even I have a memory of walking out of my last radiation appointment and her and Brandon sitting in the waiting room, just big smiles, happy. No idea what was going on. But because we at that point had to put our other 2 in school because I couldn't homeschool. So she had a lot of us, but sick time with me. So a lot of time of being on the couch together. And
I know you guys had mentioned in your last episode that she was a very empathetic little girl and that she kind of could easily see the needs of others. And, it just comes to my mind. I wonder if her being so young, going through that with you, if that built part of her character.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
Did you find that she wanted to kind of be a caregiver to you during that season, even
Yeah.
though she was little?
It was like her blankie. Like she'd be like, you always wanted to give me her blankie, or I mean,
Oh,
all the kids, they took good care of their mama.
yeah. So when you walked through it in that second round, and now you don't have your girl, what were the emotions that you faced that were different than
Mm.
round one?
I was saying to Brandon this morning that ever since losing Izzy, every trial that has come after has not cut as deep,
Mm.
even getting diagnosed with cancer again. So while we were in disbelief, it was kind of like almost a, oh gosh, I don't even know what the right word is. We just went into motion of let's get this taken care of. Let's do the treatment. Let's get through it. I think too, one of the gifts from the Lord was radiation. I had radiation the first time. I didn't think it was going to be a big deal. The second time, it was a higher dose.
Mm.
It knocked me out. So I slept a lot. And I think that that was just such a gift, because one of my fears, I wasn't able to talk. So I was stuck with all the thoughts in my head. And so one of my fears was just feeling so lonely. And that definitely happened, because
Yeah.
I'm grieving, I can't talk, and then I'm in pain. But then a few weeks in, I slept a lot, just from the toll of the radiation. And I just think that was such a grace to get through it.
Yeah. How long was your journey with cancer the second time around?
That was about 6 months also.
Well, I mean,
treatment was 6 weeks.
yeah, the treatment phase wasn't that long, but it was a full year to get back to some sort of, I guess, normalcy after physically. But then there's still been a lot of things even since, just continuing to improve, hopefully, or adapt to.
Yeah. So I bet you had a lot of things on your heart and on your mind by the time you were able to regain the function of speaking
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Has your husband been your greatest solace in all of that?
Yes, absolutely. That's going to make me cry.
Aw, it's okay to cry on this show. We cry on this show all the time.
That's one thing that my oncology doctor remarks about with how well I've done through treatment. He says you must have a great support system.
Mm.
And between him and my kids, I mean, Brandon was the reason why I fought so hard. He just gave me motivation. He set me goals, because I had to consume a certain amount of calories, and it was really hard to eat. It was painful to drink my drinks. And if he hadn't been such a coach during that time, I couldn't have imagined.
Oh, Brandon, what were some of the thoughts that went through your mind as you walked through that second season with her?
Gosh, I mean, a lot. There's, the immediate thought is I can't lose my bride.
Mm.
Especially, in that season that we were in of coming up on that first anniversary. And my job is in clinical trials, and I've been in oncology. I had been in oncology for a long time. So you see a lot of the sides of oncology, and when you're working in that field and not wanting that for our family, and especially at the time that we were going through, just thinking of losing Izzy and then losing my bride, or even just her suffering through that. I think that it's just really, really tough, as a husband, as a spouse, to watch your loved one go through treatment. And we're so thankful that she's on this side of things and is doing well. But in the moment, it's definitely tough. So that was heavy on my mind. It was also heavy thinking about our kiddos. They just went through losing their sister, and now possibly losing their mom.
Mm.
Was really, really tough. So yeah, but again, I think in that season, though, the Lord is in control. Like he is sovereign over our lives. And so if this is what he ordained to be good, and the thing that we should walk through, we were trusting in him. And I think the experience with Izzy helped us in that sense of strengthening our faith, and helping us to see that all we really have at the end of the day is the Lord. So in that moment, it was, I'd hate to lose my bride, but then she'd be at the Savior's side. She would be with Izzy again. But yeah, so I think it was like Jill said, just kind of, we're walking through another trial. We're going to trust the Lord through this. And so let's do what we can, and keep our eyes focused on Christ.
Yeah. Jill, did you find your own heart in a limbo of any sort, knowing that, if the Lord allowed you to live out more days, you would be with your husband and your remaining children here, but if he did not, you'd be reunited with Izzy?
Mhm. Very much so. I think that that's some of the beauty of our loss, is that it's opened our eyes to heaven,
Mm.
and in a more detailed and more intimate way of uh, just thinking about it a lot. And so knowing that that would be my end was comforting. But my biggest fear was them suffering,
Yeah.
Brandon suffering, my kids suffering after what they had to go through. Um,
Yes.
and then, of course, I didn't want to leave them, obviously. So, um, yeah, it was. But there are days where it was so hard that you just don't want to keep going.
Yeah. Mm. Well, when we come back after our break, we're going to talk about what that first year looked like for you guys after Izzy. And, now you guys are 3 years out from the loss of your sweet girl. And I would just love to hear from your own heart what it looks like on your end, year one versus year three, and kind of how joy and sorrow can be mingled together in a godly way. So join us in just a moment on Hope in the Morning. All right, when we come back, I'm going to start by reading the poem, The Seeds of Sorrow, one that I wrote for you. And then we'll just kind of jump into year one.
Okay.
So, and we'll probably, if you guys have time, we'll probably do the extended episode again where we talk a little more, because I'm sure we can't tackle all of this in 12 minutes.
Yeah.
That's the hardest part about this show, is it's like learning how do you pack it all in, like,
Right.
such a huge testimony. How do you pack that into 25 minutes?
It
So
goes real fast. Mhm.
yeah. So we've been thankful for this option to do the backstage.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, when you guys are ready, we'll jump back in.
3, 2.
Joining me today on Hope in the Morning are Brandon and Jill Bishop, and they're sharing with us not only their sorrow after losing their sweet girl Izzy, but also how they kept their faith through walking through a second round of cancer with Jill. I've followed you guys for a little while now on social media, and your testimony has been an encouragement to me. And I've just found it to be such a rich testimony, because you're very honest about the grief, but you're honest too about the joys that you feel. And sometimes in a deep season of grief, I've heard people say that it almost feels like a betrayal to have joy.
Mhm.
And so your testimony inspired a poem that I wrote and sent to you guys a little while back. And I'd like to just read that for our listeners. And it was called Seeds of Sorrow. And I will add this that I think is so neat, is that I didn't even know at the time that you and your sweet girl had a garden, and
Yep.
that was one of the things that you guys did. And but the Lord knew, so this is called Seeds of Sorrow. I planted a seed of sorrow deep beneath the ground, and watered it with silent tears, as words could not be found. Jehovah heard my mournful song, composed of prayer and weeping. He bent down in compassion and held me in safekeeping. When my heart felt like the darkest night from the heavy load of grief, I feared the sun would never return, my future stolen like a thief. I bowed my head as tears formed a flowing stream, and as I opened up my eyes, I saw a golden beam. Sprouting from the seed where sorrow's roots ran deep was a lovely yellow flower that awakened from its sleep. The flower had been watered by tears of winter's season, its sweet aroma reminding me that sorrow has a reason. The Father uses it to bind us close to Him and teaches us that in the roots of grief, there's still joy mingled in. And that's rooted in the verse in Ecclesiastes 3:11 that says, "He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart, yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end." Can you guys walk us through what your story looked like in year 1 of your grief?
Yeah, year one, it, as we had talked about in the last episode, it's like a bomb that goes off, and you're left with this devastation that you don't know what to do. So there feels like this just darkness, just pervasive darkness all around you, and not understanding why all of that happened, not being able to fathom just even the fact that this sweet little girl who was part of our life for 14 years just is now gone.
Mm,
So year one was very heavy, and I mean you're experiencing all the things for the first time. For the most part, you're experiencing the first holiday, you're experiencing your first birthday without her, her first birthday, first Christmas, all those things
mm,
just happen, and it's just these continual reminders and going back to just how this loss is now part of your life. So there's a lot of tears, a lot of weeping, a lot of crying out to the Lord. And so I think since then, and it's by God's grace that He allows you to start to see things change a little bit for us. We've really wanted to see that God reclaims what has been broken. That He restores, He renews what was broken.
mm,
And so even with like this year three, we're kind of coming out of a season where we just shut down. And so even things like around the house, like the yard and stuff, we didn't take care of as greatly as we could have in the past couple of years. But we're hoping that, we call it Operation Reclamation, of just kind of trying to take back what was lost. And so there is still a lot of, for instance, I was hanging out with some friends a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking and catching up, and they were talking about their lives, and I was really surprised by how much grief I still have,
mm,
because you can feel like you're walking in this new normal, this new timeline, that uh, you're getting used to it, but there's still that really hard grief, and thankfully it's not as deep or as I don't know how to explain it, but
Sharp.
as sharp, yeah, as what it was in year one, but it's still there. But by God's grace, He's helped us to carry that in a different way, and it's now just kind of part of our life. So we see this, and just the last thing is like Tim Challies has said this in the past, of with his own loss, of talking about the parallel streams of joy and sorrow, that they do coexist, and I don't think it really made sense to me until we walked through this, of what that looked like, and how both joy and sorrow can be possible by within the Lord, and how He uses the things in our life to do that.
mm. Brandon, as a husband and a father, what are some of the best ways that men can comfort other men going through those seasons, whether it's year 1 or year 3?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's one that I've been honest about. That uh, I think we have talked about how the women in Jill's life were really, really good about reaching out, even sending little cards or notes or messages on social media, being around her. The guys, we just have a harder time. I don't know what it is, but I think we can do better about when
Mhm.
our fellow brothers are suffering or enduring sorrow or grief. There is a need that they have to hear from you as a
Mhm.
brother. It's good to hear that, that through the wife that, there's comments made, that they're praying for you, but you want to hear from you directly from your brothers.
Yeah.
So I think, just getting over ourselves in the guy sense of that this is going to be uncomfortable, but it's so good. I mean, you see that with Job's friends. They just came and sat with him
Yes.
for that first week, and
Yeah.
just being, and they said some things later on that weren't all that helpful, but just being there was really good for Job, and I think for us too. The brothers that have been close to me, they've just been there, and asking, continuing to ask, how are you doing?
Mm.
How has it been since losing Izzy, and uh, just continuing to jump into that grief with you is just helpful.
It's often struck me the fact that women do tend to have a rallying of people around them. It's more natural. I mean, that's just part of how God has designed us, that we are more nurturing typically. But it has struck me that the men, the husbands and the fathers, are grieving the same losses as their family, and yet they are called by God to lead their family. And so you're leading your family through grief while navigating your own. And so in some ways, I almost think men need to be bolstered by other men in the church that much more, um, consistently and intentionally, because you have to be poured into so that you can lead a whole family
Mhm.
through this grief and something that you've never navigated before, and yet you're the leader. Um, what did that look like for you as far as navigating your family through this grief and still navigating your own too?
Yeah, it's tough because, and I had in seminary, I took some seminary classes and had a professor who, and I've stolen this and we use it in our family, that the boy takes the fall and the girl walks away. So in any hard situation, I think we as men should be willing to die to ourselves like Christ, especially in a marriage, like Christ, die to ourselves so that the girl can live. And so I've taken that approach with our family, where even though I want to just stay silent and I want to sit in my own sorrow, I know that what's most important for us is the Lord. And so it's up to me to lead, and God looks to me to be the leader of our family spiritually, so that life may happen. And so in the midst of sorrow, the thing you need the most is Christ. You don't need more, circumstantial things and comforts. You need Christ. And so
Mhm.
that was one of the things that it was, even though I fumbled through it, and I may not have been the a seminary trained type of pastor who can, spout out all the things. It was really just opening God's word,
Mhm.
finding something to read, like in the Psalms or something, singing and praying. So going to them. And
Mhm.
it is tough, because at the end of the day, then I still am dealing with my grief. And thankfully, my bride was right there with me. So she never forgot or never thought that it was all about her or the kids. She knew I needed comfort and help. And so she was very, near in that time. But I think, kind of going back to your other question, this is where guys can really help each other.
Mhm.
You can feel alone as a father or a husband grieving, because it's a lot on you to lead out in that. And so having brothers come in and support you, like again, when the Israelites were fighting, and Moses had Aaron and Hur holding his arms up, that's a picture that I think we as guys can come alongside grieving men, to help them continue to lead their family.
Yeah, I think that is a great picture to paint for men, because oftentimes men want to be seen as strong,
Yeah.
and you do have to be strong. To lead a family through grief, you can't be weak. You can't be weak spiritually. And one of the things that I've noticed in your story, especially in the first part, episode, I think it was episode 11 that we did last week, and I noticed that you guys, as I like to think of it, like you were prepared for battle because you had been faithful, Brandon, to lead your family. And you had been faithful to see the value of God's word and leading your family through that. Um, but in order to continue in that during a season of intense heartache, we need one another so
Mm.
that joy and sorrow can coexist, because we see the goodness of the Lord in our sorrow. You guys have been a great testimony of that to those of us that you've allowed into your story, through your blog, through your Instagram. And so in that regard, I think that it's so important what you're saying for men to understand that it's such a strength to step into somebody else's sorrow and to
Mm.
say, I'm going to hold your hands up. I'm going to hold your weary arms up right now, and I will help minister to you so that you can have the strength to minister to your family. And
Mm.
unfortunately, we have to end this episode right now, but this story doesn't have to end for you if you tune into our YouTube channel, where you get a backstage pass to see what our conversations are here on the station, and you get more content there. So we're going to be able to continue our conversation. Another thing that I would like to say is that you both have places where people can find you and learn more about your story and just kind of be a witness to your testimony. Where can they find each of you?
I'm on Instagram and Facebook at Back Porch Lily with 2 L's, and Y.
And I, like you mentioned, do a blog at tillwearehome.com.
All right. And they have also very generously donated this month these really cool stickers that say must trust, which is something that they learned to take on and live out from their daughter, Izzy. So every donation that comes in this month to help support the ministry of Hope in the Morning will receive one of those stickers as a reminder to you that we can trust the Lord in all circumstances. Join us again next week on Hope in the Morning. All right. So I would love to just kind of continue a little bit about like what are some tangible ways. So I know, spiritually having men pour into you and remind you of the truths that you've hidden in your heart. That's first and foremost. What are some tangible ways that men can serve other men?
I mean, it's a good question. One of the things, like I know our pastor and his wife did, um, was really just sharing a meal. So being willing to not just bring food, and I think we're good about that in the South, and especially in church cultures of bringing meal trains and things like that. But coming in and sharing a meal, as a husband and wife to that couple. But so that's part of it for sure. Is being willing to just come in and enter that sorrow, even by simple things of sharing a meal. The other thing is uh, it's good to find other brothers who may have experienced this. And there is a small group of guys that I have been walking this through almost from the beginning. A couple months after losing Izzy, there was a few guys that we have all lost children, and so we as fathers have kind of kept in touch through different channels to speak into each other's lives. But I think doing a Bible study, a book study with that brother who's going through grief, and taking, making the initiative, not waiting for that brother to reach out to you because he may not, but taking that initiative. The thing is, and I think probably everybody's different, right? But I know for me, I just wanted people to come into it. And I know it's awkward. I know it's hard, but just being there for us and being there for me, so to speak, was a help to just take me to coffee, a meal, or
and just simply ask.
yeah,
Just simply ask. Like you think you have to do this like big thing to minister to people who are hurting, but I think especially for Brandon, it was harder to go to a coffee and it not get brought up by the other person. So just simply asking, how are you holding up?
Along those lines, I would love to hear what you guys say on this. Do you like when people bring up Izzy and talk about her name? Like, is that a comforting thing to you?
Yes, incredibly comforting. Yeah,
It's so
especially
awesome that people are afraid to do it.
they are, and I understand why.
Yeah.
We've walked through other people's losses to understand why that would be hard, but it's one of the greatest gifts I feel like you can give a grieving parent is to say their name, to talk about them, to share a memory you had, or even just that you thought about them during the week. And yeah,
Yeah, because if you think about it, like in a normal day, you're talking with that child as a parent. You're bringing their name up. Their brothers or sisters are saying their name and sometimes screaming their name. That that goes away.
Yeah.
All of that just goes away. And so being able to hear others talk about, like for us, for Izzy, hearing her name brought up, like Jill said, that they thought about her,
Mm.
they remembered this thing or anything. It's just really sweet and kind, and it is an act of love. I think to keep talking and giving the parent an opportunity to talk about their child.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I think has been a little eye-opening, I guess, for me, even with Hope in the Morning and like even with the creation of the book, was how many authors came back and said that at first they weren't sure that they wanted to write their stories, but that it was so healing for them to be able to write their story, for not only for people to get to know a little bit about who their loved one was. But I even noticed just in like writing out my own story for the April feature that there's something special and healing when you write it out and you can kind of, you're almost forced to see the weaving of God's hand because you're putting in there, you're talking about your hard times. You're talking about the hard things that maybe you're certainly not excited to revisit, right? None of us are excited to revisit those sorrows. But as you turn it into a story, you see how the Lord redeemed little things. And it might be through something so small, like the yellow confetti, where it's like, wow, the Lord really, I was having a hard season at that time. But instead of thinking about my hard season over here and this random confetti that happened over here, I'm able to piece it together because now I've written it in my story. Um, One of the other things that I'd love to ask you guys if you're willing to just be transparent and talk with us is a lot of marriages have a hard time when a child has died. How did you protect your marriage?
Yeah, so I'm going to brag on my bride here because that's one of those statistics you hear when you lose a child is that marriages often fail down the road. And so my mama bear of a bride got into fierce protective mode and said, we are going to date every week.
Oh,
So we made it a point where every week we would go out on a date, and it feels a little awkward, of course, because dates are wonderful and good and celebrations typically. But this is, you're in the midst of a season of sorrow, of for us, missing our little girl. And so, and I joke about this, but we were at a restaurant one time and you get comfortable with the fact that you're crying in public. And so and you're not always in the same place. One maybe more tearful and others may not. And you find that you're eating a fry and you're eating a basket of fries and the other one's crying her heart out, but you're just walking through this because this is normal. So I think that was key for us, was making sure that we continue to date and that we prayed together and that we would read scripture together. We read some books together as well, that were about sorrow and losing children sometimes. in the grief process. So we wanted to be very intentional about going back to the Word, going back to the Lord, and also pouring into our marriage to continue this open dialogue that we've always had, but to be there for each other, because in marriage, you're one and you put the other first. So that was really important for us to do those things.
And God
Yes.
was gracious too, because we both grieved very differently, and we kind of seesawed. So I
Okay.
was down and he would be up, and so we're
Yeah.
able. There were maybe a handful of times that we were both in the deep pit together. But the rest of the times, it was just another gift from the Lord that we were able to carry and lift the other one back
Yeah.
up, which we just don't take that for granted, because we know the
Yeah.
statistics, and know that God was really gracious to continue to work on our marriage.
Yeah. Well, I love that you intentionally kind of put up that protective barrier, because, we see throughout the story of Job that Satan roams around
Yeah.
to steal and devour, right? But God has purposes in it. But sometimes you gotta put that protection up
Yeah.
against his arrows, against the sneaky ways of
Mhm.
Satan, and there's so many things that can hinder our marriages just on a normal day-to-day level, but when you're going through something so intense, and maybe you do feel like there are moments when nobody understands the grief that you're going through, because and there is an element of that, I mean, Jill, you lost a different Izzy than Brandon did, because you guys had different relationships with her, and, um, I think that that is great advice, what you were saying of just be intentional with
Mhm.
your spouse during those seasons, and, um, again, I think that's a good picture of how you mingle joy with sorrow,
Mhm.
because like you're saying, Brandon, on those dates, one of you might not be having such a hard day, and the other of you might be having a really hard day. And
Mhm.
so even just as you two are one, the joy and the sorrow can
Yeah.
be mingled at that time. And there's nothing wrong with having joy in
Mhm.
your sorrow, because that's what the Lord gives. That's part of what we want to showcase here on Hope in the Morning, is that we all will suffer to
Mhm.
different degrees. We don't know what the Lord has called us to. We know the Lord is faithful, and we know that He will restore our joy in due time. And it doesn't have to look like the sorrow's here, and in 10 years, our joy will come back.
Right.
The Lord is kind to sprinkle that in throughout. Um, Jill, I know that you have shared a couple really unique and special ways that you guys honor Izzy. Would you guys be willing to tell us a little bit about, I forget what you guys call it, but when you do that special gift exchange with each other?
Call it the best day, and
Okay.
that's all Brandon. I'll let him.
Okay.
He it came from a great source.
Well, so it was her birthday. It's on her birthday that we celebrate the best day. We had, as we were approaching that first birthday of hers after losing her, we weren't sure what to do, because there's now no more gifts to give to her. But we wanted to also think not only for today, but down the road, Lord willing, for our kids and their future spouses, hopefully, and children as well, for our grandchildren. What are ways that we can keep Izzy's memory alive with them, and to make her real? So we thought, well, why don't, instead of not being able to exchange gifts or give her gifts, why don't we exchange gifts for each other? And so we had said that basically we will draw names. So Izzy, my birthday's in December, and her birthday is the next birthday in our family. So it was always this fun little goofy fight between her and me about her saying her birthday's next, and I would say no, mine's first. But then at the end of it, got when she was older, at the end of my birthday celebration, after I unwrapped the last present or whatever, she would say her birthday was next. So she just waited until then to say her birthday was next. So now at the end of my birthday, we will draw names for each other and keep that secret. And because Izzy was creative, we wanted to do something creative for each other instead of just buying a shirt from a rack or something like that. We wanted to be creative to honor Izzy. So now we draw a name, create a gift for that person, and present that to them on Izzy's birthday. And the best day came from a Batman comic that I had read, and the author of that comic had said that his dad always called his birthday the best day. So I thought, man, that'd be cool just to call Izzy's birthday the best day.
I love that. Would you guys be willing to share just a couple of the most special things that you guys have made for the best day or received even from your kids?
Our kids, they blow us out of the water every time. You can share what some of the things they've given you for sure.
Well, this year I feel like everybody upped the ante, so we'll see how that goes in the following years. But it's been such a sweet balm to the day. Like I noticed a shift this year, especially that we were actually excited for her birthday versus dreadful. And Joshua loves to carve. He loves to do anything with woodworking, and he created some animals for Abby to have in her room.
Oh,
it was a fox and a bear and all little things.
Did you like whittle them out of wood?
Did. Yeah,
that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, because of the reason why he said was because they're just little things she'd put on her bookcase and especially that she can carry on down the line, so that she'll always remember her brother loves her. She'd look at those and see that. And then Abby what got you this year, right?
No, she got Joshua.
Oh, that's right. We had each other.
Yeah.
She had. So Jill had made me. Izzy and I loved reading to my kids. I would always read to them since they were little, different stories. And so we'd go to their room and read, or go to our bedroom and read. And so Izzy and I had been reading since she was little, and we were still reading when she was up till she was 14 and reading through book series. So one of the things that we like to do is just kind of lay on the bed, and she would draw and stuff while she listened as I read her the stories. And so Jill had made me a little dollhouse room for Izzy's and Daddy's reading room. And so made all these little miniature things, and everything was in there to kind of speak to Izzy. Like the picture of the bird back there on the wall is Izzy's drawing, or her painting, or watercolors. And Jill had made a miniature of that to put on the wall and everything. It was just really sweet and cute.
Oh. Well, Jill, if it's okay with you, when we post this episode, we'll post a little video of that so that our viewers can see what you made, because it really was very, very neat. And I have to say, as a parent, hearing all these different things that you guys have done with your kids over the years, like, you get my gold star as far as parenting goes. Like, I just think that's so precious that you guys have created really intentional meetings, like really intentional things with your kids. Like, everything has a meaning in it. I think that's so cool. And the fact that you were still reading to her at 14, I think is precious. And we love to read to our kids too, which is normally a bedtime thing. I will say there are some nights where mom is just ready, you just go to bed because, but yeah, I think great books are a great way to open their imagination to whole new worlds. And just out of curiosity, what was the book series that you and Izzy were reading when she was 14?
Well, we were going through the Harry Potter, because we were in the middle of that, and we loved the redemptive qualities that J.K. Rowling had put in there, and so bringing those out as we were reading it. Yeah, it's not only a fun story. There's a lot of good redemptive qualities that she puts in there. That's so cool. Are fun to pull out.
That's what my 12-year-old is hoping to get into now. So I think I'm going to get him the first book, and hopefully he'll enjoy that. So I have so enjoyed talking with you guys, and it's been a long time desire of mine, Jill, to actually see you face to face. This is pretty close to face to face.
Exactly.
you through the screen. And you guys are a very special couple and a very special family. And I appreciate you entrusting your story of Izzy with us and just kind of sharing what a precious girl she was, and just the testimony that you guys continue to have of the fact that God is good even in our grief. So thank you again for joining me today. And again, if you haven't heard their first episode, tune in to episode 11 and hear about Izzy, who she was and kind of how they walked through that and what must trust means to them. It really is it's a very heartwarming story. So episode 11 and now episode 12, I really strongly encourage you to listen to both of those and to share those with your family and friends. And I just appreciate you guys joining us on this ministry and just being so like-minded. It really is such a special treat. So
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank
thank
you.
you guys. You take care.